how would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have Alexander with us, which is a serial tech entrepreneur. And is a tech entrepreneur passionate about AI, finance, and autonomy. He founded Portfolio Pilot, an AI financial advisory with over 30 billion in assets on the platform. And previously, he founded and sold Aries Automation, worker on the NASA Mars helicopter, and went through a Combinator. He has raised over 300 million in venture capital and was recognized by Forbes on the 30. So, Alexander, tell us what are the 5 steps that you recommend to tech entrepreneurs to make the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
I love it. Harry, thanks for having me. I love
Pleasure.
first question, dive right in. Don't waste any time. I honestly think the single biggest thing, number one, is focusing on just talking to your users as much as you possibly can. Live in their house if you can. Work with them side by side. I think it's so easy. I mean, honestly, I feel like I made this mistake 2 times in a row with both businesses. With Iris Automation, we talked to a bunch of users. We had built in a collision avoidance system, computer vision algorithms for drones, commercial drones, package delivery, mining exploration, thinking about agricultural surveys. And we talked to a bunch of users, what they really wanted, collision avoidance. Okay, very hard challenge. I worked at NASA before, computer vision, some patents, papers. Let's build this computer vision solution. So we spent 2 years building this thing, working
Sounds
with
very
embedded
complex to
GPUs,
me.
optimizations, testing, putting drones in the air, flying them across aircraft. And then we went back to these users and we said, look, we built the collision avoidance system. It's not perfect, but are you ready to buy this? And they said, no, I don't want a collision avoidance system. I was like, what? This is crazy. You specifically said this. This is the number one challenge in the drone space. And they said, well, what we really want is beyond visual line of sight approvals from the government. We assume your collision avoidance system can get us the regulatory approvals. We want to fly more than 1 mile away from an operator.
Absolutely. Wow.
And so then we spent the next 2 years, working with the FAA and other civil aviation authorities, proving out that our system could get the regulatory approvals. And then, it turns out that they didn't quite want the regulatory approvals. They wanted, something else. And so it kind of felt like we would go away, build something, go to the customers, build something. And after 5 years, we finally figured out the actual thing they wanted, which
what
was
they really wanted, right?
A packaged thing, that they could use and go fly. No one actually wanted the approvals. No one actually wanted the collision avoidance system. And we could have figured that out in the first 3 months of the business. There wasn't anything that we needed to do. We didn't ask the right questions. We could have really lived and dug. We could have dug way deeper into what people were really wanting. Even with Portfolio Pilot, right? We built an AI financial advisor and we talked to lots of people. What do you want? I want to increase my expected returns, right? Who doesn't want to increase their expected returns? So we built forecasting models and we built a portfolio management system and back testing. And, my co-founder came from Bridgewater and, had run these kinds of models before. And this is, what I wanted myself. And same mistake. We showed it to people and they said, no, that's bad advice. I'm not going to buy this stock. I'm not going to buy this ETF. So why not? Our models are telling you. They said, well, I don't know. I need to trust you. And what I really want is I don't trust your AI to come up with recommendations for me and things to buy. There's 1,000 other Motley Fool and Wall Street Bets and, Jim Cramer and everybody else that's telling me what to buy. I want personalized advice and optimization opportunities, for me and my specific scenario. So we build tax optimization and we build estate planning and thinking about long-term scenario modeling and fee visualization. And finally, after 3 years, we've landed on something that, you can upload your portfolio and your financial situation. It gives you an assessment. It shows, here's everything that's good. Here's everything that's bad. Here's how you compare it to everybody else. And, if you want to pay $20 a month, then you can get actual fiduciary financial advice. We can find you some optimization opportunities. And like, that's the thing after so many iterations, and I've probably had thousands of conversations now with users. That's the thing that like people really want, and I think, that's number one, just talk to the users, figure out the thing that they truly, really want and
What they
question
really
why do you
want,
want
because
that, understand their
sometimes
thing.
you show them the product, they say, "Oh, I will buy it." Did they really want to buy it in that form? So you have
We
to
could have
go.
shown up with prototypes or
It's exactly what
designs
you said,
or
Alexander. Move to the house if you have to. Get obsessed with those first clients. And but again, in the tech is you also have to narrow it down, because if different people start to tell you different things, you cannot afford to pay all the developers. So you have to be listening to all your clients to give you feedback, but also exactly like you said, you also have to start to narrow down what will be your niche, because otherwise you start to develop what everybody thinks, and
I think it's
it's
very
tough,
easy
right?
to think like, how do
To
I get my
deviate,
first
to
1,000
deviate.
clients? Right? Like, I think to get 1,000 people paying you money is incredibly difficult. If you're already
So
at the point where
in
you have
tech,
thousands of paying
oh my
clients,
God,
like you have crossed a
yeah,
massive threshold.
yeah.
Get 10 people to pay you. Get your friends to pay you, right? Your friends are much less likely. I don't know about your friends, but my friends are much less likely to pay me things. They say, Alex, give it to me for free, or I'll try it out for you, give you feedback, but fix it first before I'm actually going to start paying for it. Getting 10 people to actually pay you, I think you end up realizing, like, we had one of the biggest problems we needed to solve to get the first 10 people to pay us, which I really did not expect, was we needed to figure out a way to import people's accounts in a secure, reliable way. And you might think like, okay, you can do this with Plaid, just sign up for an API. But like, we ended up having to allow people to manually edit securities, remap certain things, add proxies. We need
It's
to
a
be
lot
able
of
to allow
personal
people to report problems,
that people don't want. Yeah. So
take a screenshot and import it, type it out manually for some people. What a pain. Not anywhere close to like our big differentiator in the financial advice, but like, we needed to solve that one annoying technical problem to get someone to pay us for financial advice. And
okay,
so I think the more you
listen
stick
to
with
your
like very specific people,
listen to your clients is key. Okay, so what would be the second step? Okay, we get it that if you need to move into your client's house, you have to. Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. But after what happened? What people can do next?
I think the
After
first one
the tech
is,
entrepreneur move to the house of their clients or the first few
I think the
clients,
first
what
one,
what
move to
else
the
they should
house.
do?
I think the
I love
second
this concept.
one
Yes.
is, I think it's wrapped up into that, but I think it's like, dive into this, like, figure out what the actual problem is that you're solving and be
And what they
very,
really
very
want. And
specific
what they
about
really
it.
want, because what you move, the fact that you move into the house, that doesn't mean that you know what they really want in one form. In this broadcast, someone from the 80s came and they told me he developed a device. I'm telling you, in the 80s, yeah,
Right.
that tracks the time for people of work. Yeah, and then he had this idea. Okay, these are gonna set this like a mobile phone. I'm gonna say to all the workers, everybody will buy, everybody will track the time at work. That was his idea, and after he developed the prototypes and everything, nobody wanna buy it. Nobody actually cares, because it was not the employees who want to buy these to see if they are more efficient. What people that were very interested was the managers and the owners of the company, and they don't even want the device. They want as a service. You don't come, bring your things, measure the whole thing. So look how far away is from what he thought that the market wanted about his product, that what actually he managed to monetize and people buy from it. So again, I agree with you. It's not only moving to the house, that you move to the house and you need still to keep your ears open,
I think this is
and
number
the
two, right?
customer
Like,
will
figure out
lead
the,
you where, but you have to be very listen very carefully listening because it's easy to deviate as well, Alexander, right?
Exactly. I think number 3 is something very similar to what you're talking about, right? Like figure out what the packaging is. And
100%. Pricing,
something like
package
this.
it, and what
The
they're really
packaging
to pay
could be
money, huh?
services, right? The packages could be like, I mean, for us, at first we talked about, these macro models and like, it turns out even the AI financial advisor, right? Like a lot of people, that feels like the thing that it is. Like if I actually have to describe it, I think that I would describe it as a personal AI financial advisor. And it's really giving you advice. But I think when people think about a financial advisor, what they oftentimes think about, what most financial advisors do is take your money and they manage it for you, right? They're actually a portfolio manager. They say, I'm going to do it my way, right? I'm the quote unquote expert, and there's lots to talk about on that front as well about what the experts do. But for us, like telling people we were, an AI financial advisor, people immediately think, whoa, like Alex, I'm not ready for AI to manage my money. Right, that feels like a huge step up, and the Overton window is changing. But like, I don't think we're quite ready yet for
Yeah, we
AI to
like
just
ChatGPT to tell us to
manage my
write the letter, a
retirement
love letter
account,
for
and
us, but to deal with our money, everybody's like, wow.
so the idea that like we are an incredible free portfolio tracker seems to work really well. Like in many of our ads that we run on like a lot of our home pages, a lot of the CTAs and like content we put out, just like use our comprehensive portfolio tracker. It's a free portfolio tracker and you don't need a credit card at all. You don't need to pay anything. And I'm thinking, as the founder, like it's kind of annoying that we need to do that. Right? Sort of feels like a side thing that we needed to build to give people really good financial advice, right? We need to first import it. And it turns out that thing is actually really valuable on its own. And so we
Absolutely.
package it up like that. It's very often we tell people like we're an incredible portfolio analysis tool. And so you can come to automatically calculate returns and performance and get an assessment. The idea that you could use AI to do an assessment of your portfolio, I don't know, going to a doctor, getting a second opinion feels obvious, but have you gotten a second opinion on your financial advisor? Selling it like this, it actually turns out that that's a much more effective packaging than trying to talk to people about tax optimization opportunities or giving really good investing advice.
And it's done,
No one
it's
trusts
all
you
done
right off the
automatically.
bat. They like the idea that there's sort of this free assessment and analysis. That turns out to be a much more effective packaging strategy for us than telling them right out of the gates, this is the most important thing.
But they might not be aware about the exposure that they have because again,
Right.
is a manager advisor, and maybe even if you see that wow, my money is growing a lot, yeah, but what exposure do you have in that money? Can you lose a lot overnight? Well, your money is it? Is it in crypto? Because it can
Exactly.
it
I
can
mean, the idea of
disappear
downside
overnight. Yeah,
protection and crisis
yeah.
analysis and, just, Harry, isn't it a good idea for you to stress test your portfolio?
Ah.
Takes 5 minutes, do it for free. Just in
Absolutely.
case,
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, the yes, we had to see what AI is actually, because it's actually helping us, because sometimes again the people are not really aware that the level of exposure, the risk that they have in the portfolio, or how well balanced it is, how diversified it is, and certainly I agree with you. A tool with this will help. So we're going step number 3. So what are the other 2?
All right, step number 4. I think a big step, like I think a big part of step number 4 is setting up some sort of constant feedback mechanism. And we set up a feedback mechanism 2 years ago, and I thought this is amazing, right? We have a customer
Feedback
support.
mechanism, is it automatically or?
I'll tell you, like when I think about like we have a feedback mechanism, and I would say at this point we've iterated our way from a feedback, a support channel, in the corner intercom to a feedback machine.
Exactly.
And
tell us about your experience.
There's just a standard support channel. People type, hey, I can't find this, or I want a refund, or whatever it is, right? There's an automated system. We use Zendesk at this point, right? We graduated to something else. And there's a ton of feedback that makes its way into product management and engineering, and we fix lots of problems this way. And, we test messaging and add lots of different FAQs, and tutorials and walkthrough videos based on what we get there. Every single time someone downgrades to a free tier or cancels, you ask people feedback there. We've
Really powerful.
iterated on our feedback flow to encourage people to give as much feedback as possible. Take it very seriously. We follow up with people. If they give us something interesting, 50% of the feedback that we get allows us to just fix something small, reach back out to the person and win them over to, stay using the product. I think a lot of people downgrade, and they think it's going to go into it's an annoying downgrade flow. I give a comment, it's going to go into some database somewhere. No one ever reads it. And people are surprised when you message them, 3 days later, or 3 hours later, days later, and say, Harry, we had problems with X. We fixed that. We're going to give you a month complimentary service to try it out again. We're sorry about that. There's something incredible like that. These are points when people actually become, it's really problematic. We have automated ways like Hotjar and Mixpanel to be able to track when people click on the same thing over and over again, when people refresh the page. These are friction points that are really annoying for people in the product, and they get stuck or something freezes. Very useful to be able to deal with those problems. If someone links an account, for example, or imports it, we ask people throughout the process, here's a preview. Did we import it correctly? If not, it ends up in a feedback flow, and we follow up with people afterwards. If someone downgrades from the product, I automatically send them an email and say, hey, I'm the co-founder of Portfolio Pilot. I saw you, it didn't work out for you with the free trial. Would you like to get on a feedback call with me? All I care about is improving the product. This is I live, breathe, sleep this product. And
the people will give you the feedback for
customer
free.
calls every single day.
The people will give you the feedback for free, and this is amazing because this is priceless. When you are in the tech space, priceless.
If someone links their account, spends an hour with the product, gives us their credit card, starts a free trial,
and somehow has
and
a bad experience, somehow doesn't exactly what happened there, because a feedback from a client can make a huge difference. How and the fact that you can automatize this is amazing. So what would be the step number 5 then?
Step number 5 is all about optimization. I think that we're talking about getting to $1 million of ARR, right?
Yes.
And so at this point, we have, I think, early product market fit. I think that we have some ways to be able to pull people in. We get referrals. There's a bunch of people that really love the product. We fixed a bunch of all the obvious issues. Maybe step 4A or step 4B is don't listen to all the feedback, right? You still got to decide, of all the feedback, what do you filter out? What do you focus on? But I think
what is financially viable?
Yeah, it be we could build
people
some
give you
side
feedback
for 3
wow,
months.
Man,
not worth
I
it.
wish that I can fulfill your feedback, but we don't have funds for it. Especially in tech, that everything is expensive. Yeah.
I'm shocked at how much optimization of all of our flows we've been able to do. And we are
I congratulate you.
I'm shocked every single month. Every single month I think, wow, we found out that if we change the text of our landing page, it increases the conversion rate by 20%. This must be the last 20% optimization we can squeeze out of the product. There's nothing else. And then the next month, 16% increase in conversion. We had people in the onboarding process. We have 12 steps for our onboarding process. It's super long. It's crazy. I mean, it takes 1.5 minutes, so it's not actually very long, but it feels long, right? Everybody I talk to says 12 steps, cut it down to 6, cut it down to 3. So we ran an A/B test and we cut it down to 10. This is when we had 8 steps on our onboarding and we cut it down to 6, right? Even 8 feels very long. We cut it down to 6. and we had a drop off in people finishing the onboarding process. We eliminated steps and we had 5% less people finish the onboarding process. And then we said, let's add some more steps to it.
They thought that was no serious, maybe, because
we
when
made
it comes to finance,
at 12. We had a 23% increase in conversions by increasing it from 8 to 12.
Wow. And yes.
It feels there's
you know, when something is important for you, when something is important for you, look, when we're gonna take a flight, look how many things we feel. We don't want to miss the plane, right? We give them where we live, we give them the time that we go to bed, whatever these people ask, we're gonna provide this information, because no way that we're missing the flight, right? So the same thing.
Anecdotally, like we to people try to figure out why is this happening, and right, you can't. There's sort of an indirect effect. Obviously, we saw the increase. I think part of it is like the foot in the door, right? If I'm already X steps in, I might as well finish it off. But the most powerful thing is, if we're really talking about giving personalized financial advice to you, I don't trust that you can know me if it's only 6 questions you ask me. You know, if I go into a human financial advisor office, I expect them to ask me 20 minutes of questions first before they're going to give me any real financial advice.
Wow, that's amazing. Really,
fascinating.
Really powerful.
I mean, there's optimization opportunities everywhere in win-back emails, in asking for advice, in like adding extra text. Like we add to our payment modal, we added a little, like we had a little, in lowercase letters, cancel anytime. When we made it bold and all capitals, cancel anytime, 26% increase in people from the payment modal actually entering their credit cards. Absolutely crazy. Human psychology through all of it. Optimization, there's so much you can improve. I guarantee it, no matter who's listening.
So next, why by you being already founder and exited, and you already exit from your first company, why you not on holiday? Why you don't go on rest and spend your time in the beach? You know better than anybody you get it into again, because I advise a lot of tech startups, and I'm on the space, and I know what is really happening for sure. It's a nightmare, but if you love that nightmare, I mean, meaning because
it's a nightmare and it's super stressful, and I'm working more than ever before.
Exactly. So Alexander,
I love it.
Exactly. I can tell, because the even but I want for you to expand a little bit more, because I don't want that our audience have the wrong assumption, because 1 out of 6 people that come to this podcast on a stop of 5-step how to make your first million are tech entrepreneurs. That's the truth. However, we want to send the right message because everybody only listening the good stories of those who don't succeed. And in my opinion, the tech space is a space with a very high that nobody talks about. And so how tech founders can mitigate that risk? Or my question to you is this really that easy to become a millionaire in tech? Or so what really happening? Because people can make a statistic, listen to this podcast, and say, look, I'm going to tech, man, because this guy's a millionaire. I listened last week and another millionaire came, and last week, so you know what, I'm gonna design an app and I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna become a millionaire. So what is the really true behind this?
I think it's really difficult. I think
I agree with you.
It's also not just all skill, right? I like to think that I'm really smart and work really hard. I've made all the right decisions, but there's also a significant amount of luck involved, right? And not everybody is going to be as lucky as me. I think
persistence as well, right? Persistence. You need to keep going and iterating and iterating and iterating.
The resilience and the persistence. I someone recently say, if you could sum up everything into just like one piece of advice, what does it take to succeed? And like all it comes down is don't give up. Just don't fail. Don't crash out and give up. And like just if you stay alive for long enough, you will eventually iterate your way to success. And like it seems so basic, right? But all of it is like wrapped up into resilience and persistence. I think honestly, the answer to your question, I took some
Have
time
you
off.
been,
We
you
had
did took some
kids. We
holidays,
bought a
right?
house in the Bay Area.
Very good.
I get so bored if I'm going to lie on a beach somewhere. I can only read so
Me
many
too.
books and listen. Like a
I only
5 day
last a couple of
vacation, I
weeks.
think I
Yeah,
start going
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So quiet
I
for me,
think
yeah, the
I
beach.
think that it's hard. I think it's hard to keep
But
doing
you
it
should
over and over
rest.
again.
But good rest is ideal because it's a very intensive process to build a tech startup,
I think you need to
raise the
avoid
money
burnouts.
and
I think a
everything.
lot
So
of burnout comes a lot of the burnout comes with doing things you don't like doing. And so, I mean, it feels cliche, right? But like do the things you love. For me, I think what I really like is doing something new every single 6 months. Like I feel like I'm in a completely different role. Like
yeah,
the things I'm really focused on right now are marketing and setting up different channels and experimenting and partnerships and ads. And like I'm reading books and I'm reaching out to different CEOs and founders and trying to learn from them. And I don't know, I've never gone on TikTok before, right? Like, can I
oh, tell me
make,
about it.
have some ad strategy work on
Tell me about it.
TikTok?
Oh, wow,
Maybe.
amazing. I heard that it's very cost effective. Depends,
But it's
depends on the
like
product,
every
depends on
six
the
months I'm
product.
working on something else, right? Every six
Yeah.
months ago, it was like all A/B testing, optimization. I read books
But
about that and talked to people and listened to podcasts. And it's also, I feel like worst case scenario with Portfolio Pilot, I've built something for myself that I actually find really
absolutely.
useful.
A lot of story from this podcast is this how a lot of people started into business in the first place. Even my first business, the property managed to sell over 5 million. And I was trying to solve the problem for myself. I was trying to don't pay rent.
Right.
You see,
Exactly. Yeah.
to then I rent out the rooms
I've built something
and
for
then manage.
myself. I've learned a whole bunch
Yes,
through it. I'm probably a
and
little bit more
now
famous now than 3 years ago. If I
absolutely
really need to get a job at Google, I'm more likely to get that job, I think,
quickly, yeah,
than I was 3 years ago before starting the company,
hundred
right?
percent.
Or 10 years ago before starting the previous company. And
But
so, uh, obviously you can burn through a lot of money and there's like a financial component to it. But I think if you mitigate that, then like the other downsides of taking yourself off the market for a couple of years aren't that bad. Like you end up, I feel like almost every person that started a company, failure or success, they've emerged, a better person the other end. And they know
absolutely.
themselves better.
Absolutely, and what they can. But then, Alexander, there are a second part that we talk about briefly, which is we all, especially in this podcast, all our listeners, everybody want to make money, everybody want to make the first million, everybody want to get the product market fit. But it's a second part of the question that very few people talk about, which is keeping that money. And here I talk a lot about this in this podcast. That, for example, we have decent entrepreneurs that the business money, they take all the money, they reinvest in the business. The more they take all the money, they reinvest in the business, and then once they created big business, then COVID happened, something happened, the market changed, Airbnb come, whatever, and all of a sudden you're out of business and you have zero. So
Right.
a more effective way could be, in my opinion, looking back, my own experience, and is something that you have a financial advisor, same like the thing that you did, and I actually think that's very useful for the entrepreneurs, for our listeners, is that okay, you're making money with your business. Okay, how about if you take some of this money and you buy a property, to give an example, and the property, and after you pay the mortgage, the extra that the rent give you, you can use this money for marketing. Imagine you can have, and then what happened? You need more money for marketing. Okay, let's buy another house. To give you an example, or let's put the finance in another asset class. There are all
Right. Right.
shares or
Right.
something that give dividends. So guess what happened? If something happened, well, you still have your cash flow coming into you, and I think
Yeah.
that all the entrepreneurs deserve it.
I think
Uh,
it is, I think you're absolutely right, right? Most people are focusing
but
on
we
the
nobody talks
alpha and
about
most
this.
people are
Nobody talk
focusing on
about
like,
this. And so would be amazing if in this thing that you're developing, you can something specific for the entrepreneurs, how they can they do with the profit,
Yeah,
because it's not
we have a
always
lot
good
of, I
idea,
mean,
especially if you are in tech. I mean, I'm not saying anything, but tech is such
super high
that if
risk,
all the money that you're
absolutely.
making, you putting everything inside there and everything, I think my opinion could be very high, because it's
Honestly,
and things
this is
market
what
change
I
very
wanted
quickly.
for myself,
I
right?
know.
Like I sold my
Been
previous
there. No, I
business.
know. I know everything they're
We
going
we bought a
through.
house in the Bay
Hold
Area.
on, and
We
I know
had
what happened. I
kids,
know
right?
what happened. Now you went to a financial advisor, and the people
Mm.
are coming to you. They look. This is how it's gonna be. I want your money, and I'm gonna make it work for you, and I'm gonna do this and this. But don't worry too much about what I'm gonna do with it. I just will increase you X percent. And you are like, man, but what is the risk involved? Is it really true? It's my money, it didn't come out from the sky. I have to be the tech company. Maybe
Are the fees worth
your
it?
financial
Can we run
advisor
some
don't know
crisis
what it
analysis?
takes, to be in a tech company. So I think that, of course, I read the report also. For example, that the Super Bowl players, 70%, high percentage, that people get paid millions. They all fight for again, because
The
the
same thing with
people,
lottery winners, right? It's
yeah.
like it's a very common story.
So,
I think
and
probably
then you have
half
people
of what
that
you
start
need to
with
pay
nothing,
attention to is
entrepreneurs. You have entrepreneurs, people start nothing, but doing the
right.
right decision like you're doing, and then they are really, really wealthy. In this podcast, you will be surprised how wealthy they are, the entrepreneurs that we have interviewed here. But because very carefully plan this, but unfortunately nobody talks about this. Definitely they don't teach in the school. Definitely, if we don't. Uh, so, how you find out, or what do you think that can what do to give a financial advisor could be? Let's call it different. Let's call it how to mitigate the risk of the hard working entrepreneurs in order for them to be compensated for the job what they're doing, and when they have success, they need to know their choices, and they need to know at least the risk that what because when we love, I'm an entrepreneur, same like you're so in love with the product and with your what you, that that's your world. You forget about anything that's going out of the world. And sometimes again, we the entrepreneurs know the level of risk of exposure that they have by putting all the money in the business. So what's your view, Alexander, and what do you have in mind for your software to try to help entrepreneurs to become healthy? This broadcast is all about entrepreneurs to be wealthy, healthy, and happy. The three things.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
so
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean,
so
we built Pilot, for this exact purpose, right? I mean, the whole point of Portfolio Pilot is for Alexander Harmsen to figure out what do I do with some of this newfound liquidity after I sold my previous company. I talked to 20 wealth managers and private bankers and financial advisors, and
you
a
were
lot
not
of them were
convinced.
salespeople and not
You were not
giving me
convinced.
real personalized financial advice. My wife runs a biotech company. They've raised, tens of millions, and they're doing great. They sell to some of the biggest pharma companies in the world.
Wow.
And we bought a house in the Bay Area. We started a family. We have 2 toddlers now. And I wanted advice for my specific situation. I thought increase expected returns, right? I have a fairly high risk tolerance, but think about some of the downside protection, right? Inflation in 2021 started becoming sort of a big topic. Are we in a big bubble? What if there's a big recession? COVID, is that going to tank everything? What's going to happen to oil prices and shipping and travel, and which sectors are going to break? And like I built something for myself that basically just took my situation, with the house that we just bought, and I have a bit of a crypto portfolio, and I have a 401k, and I have my wife's IRA, and we obviously have the startup equity. There's a bit of cash sitting there. We're starting to do some public market investing, and what if we do angel investing? And like I want to model all these different things out, and I want some scoring mechanism to decide, expected returns and Sharpe ratio and downside
And if it
protection.
works,
And there's sort of this whole Bridgewater philosophy of like the all-weather portfolio, and like, how do I compare my crypto portfolio to my real estate? There's a certain leverage involved with the mortgage. And so we built all these different things out to ultimately result in one portfolio score. We can run different crisis simulations. We can model that forward in time, 30 years, with different scenarios and different, life events. Taxes end up being a huge part of like every single one of these decisions. And so you have to thread through a tax model, for my income bracket, for where we live, and, it's state specific, there's federal specific. And, it just gets more and more comprehensive, right? And the main idea, like the main benefit with having this programmatic system is that we code in some new tax rule or something about estate planning or some optimization opportunity, some new metric. We connect it through to a bunch more macro series or some underlying regression models, and it gets better for everybody involved, right? And so, I mean, it sounds super promotional, but like this question, I think, is designed for me and this specific situation. Ultimately, I think people should use Portfolio Pilot. I mean, my wife's startup equity, the seed that I have in Portfolio Pilot, is modeled in Portfolio Pilot, and it's private equity. There's a drop down startup equity. And, we're tracking that compared to like this startup equity index, and we can attribute it to tech exposure, and it's, US country, and we have certain expected returns and a risk profile. You can think about it as sort of leveraged public markets tech with a little bit of a leg. So like all of that gets threaded through and connected. And
I really
like we're
think
constantly adding more scenarios, as you can imagine, right? Like a big question that comes up is like, okay, what happens if I have to take 50% salary over the next 3 years? How does that affect my retirement plan? What happens if I get married or get divorced? Or, you want to, I mean, even if you just try it once, don't save it as a setting, but it might be useful to answer that question. Things like this, I think, are a core part of why people want advice, they want guidance. And, a model like this should work for, you when you're poor, starting out, 19 years old, your first startup, you don't have, more than a penny to your name. And it should work if you have, $10 million after an exit, and
absolutely.
you're figuring out what to do next, and you can, figure out if you're trying to invest in private debt or some, your third property or whatever it is.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Alexander, for this broadcast. I think that that what you have created, I genuinely believe that is amazing and can really help entrepreneurs. And we need to continue the conversation regarding how to keep the wealth, because everybody's so focused to get the product market fit. Everybody's so focused to set the millions. Everybody's so focused in increasing revenue and to exit the company. But after people are sitting with all this cash, if you prepare, if you don't have some knowledge, if you don't have some software or some tool that can give you some guidance, it's very easy to take a wrong decision and literally lose it all.
Right, exactly.
It's as difficult. People don't know that, but it's as difficult as making the money. Same as difficult is to keep it and grow it. It's not an easy task. Sounds easy, but it's not. The other day, when someone came to this broadcast and she inherited, maybe I remember, over from the parents, maybe 5 million, 7 million, and I think she got until 50 million. And then she was saying, "Well, Harry, but no big deal. I inherited the money." And I'm like, "Look, you are a genius. You are so good. The fact that you inherited 3, 5 millions, it doesn't. The people might telling you, well, because you inherited this money, that's why you did well, but that's not the case. Well, let me tell you something. You get 50% of the equation because of having that money and make it work and expand it for 5 to 40. I think it's very impressive, very very impressive. So plus to make your first million, it's as difficult to to start your business and make your first business. Second step, which is the step that you are now, which is having this capital and making it work for you while you are parallel most of your time focusing in the second company. I think is very good. And the good thing about this is both things are working for you because you actually working in something that will plan your finance and it grows. So thank you so much, Alessandra. I think you're brilliant. So clever. Yeah, spend more time in the beach or in Liberia or whatever. Yeah, don't work too hard. You're too young. And for all of you in this broadcast, our next episode of Autostop, how great entrepreneurs like Alexander break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for having me. Great day.
Pleasure.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.